spoke out at a school board meeting hearing about her child's class being shown a movie with a gay character in it.
It's a view that celebrates destructive and toxic behavior and hurts so many.
They have identified 31 gender identities.
Target has hired Eric, a self-proclaimed gay trans man, to design some of its clothing for Pride Month. He's designed a Satan Respects Pronouns t-shirt, gay as hell stickers, and stained glass windows with the words, trans bodies are holy.
Here at Target because I heard that their new Pride collection was out, so let's take a look. This is a special swimsuit. It is invented for tucking. Live, laugh, lesbian. This right here. These are baby clothes. They say that grooming isn't happening, then why are there Pride baby onesies? Kids going to a Pride parade. You get a little Pride skirt for your kids. Super cool. It's like a superpower.
They're going after your kids, and if you don't believe me, the U.S. Department of Education this morning, June 1st, Pride Month, posted on Twitter, everyone in the school community should feel valued for who they are and free to be their authentic self. Our message to the LGBTQIA+ students, teachers, and staff as we begin Pride Month is the Education Department has got your back.
We begin with the violent protests outside a school board meeting in Glendale, California.
They need to stop asking little children what they sexually identify as. Children are not sexual beings, nor should they be. The sexualization of children is pedophilia.
I'm completely against the law that they're trying to pass to teach little kids in the school, 6 years old, to decide about sexual things. They don't even know what's going on.
Teaching a 6-year-old about sexuality, I mean, this should be common sense. But if you feel similar to those parents and you want to stay in your child's education, you might get put on a hate group list.
We begin with Ford. So Ford has decided for Pride Month, they're going to release a rainbow Ford F-150.
When I think about queer, I kind of think that it's unique in our own special way.
Disney has decided they have to have pride collections at Disneyland. That you can't be called princesses or princes at Disneyland anymore because obviously the magic of childhood has to be removed. You never know when a boy is a girl and a girl is a boy. So Adidas, yeah, that is a lot of chest hair for a man dressed as a woman in a women's bathing suit.
Next tonight, let us pray. Our Father, sorry, not anymore, our non-gendered parent who art in heaven. That sound right to you? In to break the centuries of tradition, the Church of England is debating whether to stop referring to God as a he by introducing gender-neutral pronouns in prayers.
Recently in Florida, a parent spoke out at a school board meeting hearing about her child's class being shown a movie with a gay character in it, and the teacher of that class responded to those complaints. Look at this.
Allowing movies such as this assist teachers in opening a door for conversations that have no place in our classrooms.
These conversations, these doors that she's talking about, that's telling me I'm stripping her rights as a parent, those rights are gone when your child's in the public school system.
Those rights are gone when you put your kids in the public I'm sorry, what?
Okay, on to North Face. North Face is all about tough outdoor wear, right? You're gonna go climb a mountain wearing North Face. Or alternatively, you're going to be a dude who dresses up in ladies' clothing and gallivants through the forest while holding a TV. Bud Light has taken it directly on the chin ever since they decided that they were going to make Dylan Mulvaney the face of their brand. It was April 1st, and I remember seeing this online. I thought, this has to be April Fool's. I mean, it has to be April Fool's.
Okay, this is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have Glad You Came Out and I'm So Happy That You're Queer in the kids section. Are you kidding me? So I found an extra small swimsuit in the child section. It says light binding effect on it. And then the bottoms in the kids section, keep in mind, say tuck friendly construction. They're giving it to your kids. If that doesn't give you a reason to boycott Target, I don't know what does. But the getting out of hand. They're targeting children, whether you like it or not, and it's time that people actually do something about it.
Why are so many companies going woke? There had to be some reason, and after some digging, I found it. The CEI, Corporate Equality Index, aka the Woke Credit Score. It's a made-up score based on how much a company is pushing woke issues. And who made up and gives this score? An organization called the HRC, a massive political lobbying group. Apparently, HRC sends representatives to corporations every year, telling them the kind of stuff they have to make visible at the company. Give them a list of demands, and if they don't follow through, there's a threat that they won't keep their CEI credit score. And why do companies even care about this made-up woke credit rating?
If they get a bad score, then the woke investor funds start putting pressure on the boards. Woke activists are mobilized out in the streets. Advertising campaigns are shut down. Anyone that continues to do business with them will also be penalized. This is fascism.
Don't play their game, don't get their investment. And who is funding the HRC? Surprise, surprise, it's George Soros' Open Society Foundation. Now, this HRC has introduced this arbitrary credit rating to everything. States, municipalities, and even schools. Imagine that. There are people who are deciding what credit score an individual school can get. They threaten them by having these big funds withhold investments into them.
There's a quote that says, controllers, abusers, and manipulative people don't question themselves. They don't ask themselves if the problem is them. They always say the problem is someone else. I want to break this healthy family structure down, because if you have broken families, you have broken societies. And it all mostly starts by attacking the man. Being a good husband, a good father, a good son, a good brother, and the list goes on.
Day 66, being a girl, and today I'm in nature. Trees, I love them. Water, lakes, I love them. Heels, they're my hiking heels. I love them. Okay, come on. Bridges, love them. Coconut water, love it. Not mad, just love it.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
Do you agree with, I mean, obviously you do. There is a massive shortage of even knowing what a man is supposed to be in today's world.
There's no question. I mean, I actually wrote the book. Everybody knows that manhood's in crisis in our generation.
Like all of us, ideas of masculinity are evolving. Today, you may get a deserved side-eye if you say things that used to be commonplace, like real men don't cry or boys will be boys. Waves of feminist critique and the Me Too movement have called out behavior that used to enjoy impunity and now faces greater demands for accountability. Today, the view that you're only a real man if you're dominant or aggressive is thankfully on the defensive. And thank you for that. It's a view that celebrates destructive and toxic behavior and hurts so many, and not just women. The phrase toxic masculinity might once have been reserved for the fringes of the national conversation, but increasingly in schools and workplaces and on media outlets like this one, it is a conversation we are having together.
They've tried it.
And you came to prominence in part over your opposition to this law that we just talked about in Canada, proposing the use of preferred pronouns for transgender people. Just for clarity.
Mandating them.
Yeah.
Right.
Saying that you should do it.
No, but you had to do it.
Right, you had to do it by law. But just for clarity, do you think a trans woman is a real woman?
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. Now, I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, you know, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
Why not?
Because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that people should be treated with respect and dignity if they happen not to fit easily into a gender category. That's a different issue.
As I suggested earlier, in New York City, they have identified 31 gender identities, and apparently the law down there suggests that if businesses don't accommodate an individual's chosen gender identity, there is the risk of a six-figure fine under the rules of the city's Commissioner of Human Rights. We have, in the province of Ontario, our own Ontario Human Rights Commission.
And want to dominate others through force, beating other men or women to a pulp, or beating their own children to a pulp. Some of these men feeling that they should never talk about their emotions or even cry.
Why masculinity as your new big issue?
Well, I think what the left is doing is attacking America. They're saying that America is systemically oppressive and men are systemically responsive.
Now, if you look carefully, you'll notice that political and media leaders on the left are slowly chipping away at this idea of masculinity. In other words, what it means to be a man. Don't believe me? Well, check out this discussion of school shooters on MSNBC.
We've been told to man up. What does that mean?
No clue. I got no, show no emotion.
Yeah. What's the hardest part about growing up for boys?
Hiding the pain.
Yeah. Not being able to express yourself.
How are you? Let's talk about this. Like, when I hear these attacks on masculinity, I hear the left equating masculine, what it means to be masculine, with abusive or criminality.
That specific MSNBC segment was talking about is the fact that rigid gender roles, specifically in boys, are tied to higher rates of suicide, substance abuse, violence. So it's basically saying that these gender roles are creating an environment in which men and boys feel that they can't express themselves, which they have to be.
But Julie, how is that connected? Gender, I mean, we've had gender roles for, I don't know, millennia.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, well, gender roles are causing boys to commit suicide. Well, maybe there's a lot of societal factors involved in drug abuse, in promiscuity, in shaming, in substance abuse of other types, addictions.
I believe that there's a danger in our society at the moment of making the assumption that our culture, for example, is a tyrannical patriarchy, which it is in some small part, and that any active engagement on the part of young men in particular is indistinguishable from an unacceptable power and dominance drive, which I don't believe.
But surely
all of that is inappropriate and incorrect.
If much of the power and authority over a very long historical period is lain with men, isn't it only inevitable that some men will get a little hacked off when women are given a stab at something approaching equality?
Well, that could be inevitable, but that doesn't make it right, and it's certainly not something that I support. So
So you think men's resentment is more important than women's effort to attain equality?
I'm not in favor of resentment at all. I think that if you're resentful, something's definitely wrong. Either you need to grow the hell up and take stock of your life, or you have some things to say to people that you haven't been saying.
You say science undoubtedly shows us that men and women have different traits, and there's a lot of science to back you up on that. But you say that because of that, men are hardwired to achieve success and to be successful in a way that women are not.
No, not at all. I've never said anything like that. I've said that there are biological differences between men and women that express themselves in temperament and in occupational choice, and that any attempt to enforce equality of outcome is unwarranted and ill-advised as a consequence.
Example, more men might be interested to play rugby or choose engineering as a career path, and more women might choose to be health workers. And that is okay. Men and women are different. Men have similarities and women have similarities. And then there are also differences within each sex group, because not all men or all women are the same.
I think it's a self-perpetuating problem, meaning that there are crappy men in the world, right? But men are crappy because we've created a system where manhood has become obsolete. You keep increasingly telling men more and more they can't matter. When I say, who are they being told that by? You know, like I said, there's more sinister implications here of why we're making manhood obsolete. When we're saying masculinity is wrong, this is backwards. You don't need a man. You can just have a baby without a man. You're starting to see that sort of programming happening with young women. It's like, why is society communicating to men to be more feminine at the same time that you're telling women to be more masculine, right? That's like, just take a step back and think. You don't have to like Candace Owens to take a step back and to go, that is kind of weird, right? It is a bit weird that you're telling men, oh, all displays of masculinity are wrong and you need to be more feminine, and telling men they can bend gender and do all of these things, while at the same time you're saying to a woman, you need to man up, you need to provide, you need to do this, you need to do that. That tells you that there's something satanic going on, right?
Dr. Kumar, can biological men become pregnant and give birth?
So men can have pregnancies, especially trans men?
So can biological men become pregnant and give birth? So are you saying that a biological female who identifies as a man therefore becomes pregnant as, quote, a man? Is that what you're saying?
These questions about who can become pregnant are really missing the point. I'm here to talk about...
No. This is me asking a question and you answering. I'm asking the question, sir, not you.
Right, and I'm answering the question. Somebody with a uterus may have the capability of becoming pregnant, whether they're a woman or a man. That doesn't make
Okay, we're done.
Not
we're
every
done.
person with
this
a uterus
isn't complicated.
has the ability.
Let me tell you, if a person has
This
a
is
uterus
medicine.
and is born female, they are a woman.
Are now trying to tell us that transgender people are not real. And I would say that their claim is probably just as legitimate as all their others, which is to say, not very much at all.
Say your truth is that whales have legs and walk on land, but they don't, do they? You can say elephants are pink, but that doesn't change the reality, does it? If you're obese, you can say that you're super skinny. Or you can say that you're skinny and you're obese, but that doesn't change the reality, does it? If you're 60 years old and you say you're 20 years old, it doesn't make you younger.
On Friday, we talked about Harry Styles' Vogue cover. He's the first guy to grace the cover solo. So Harry gets playful with clothing inside the pages, including this gown. He says that clothes are meant to have fun with and experience with. And once you remove the male-female barriers to clothes, it opens up more arenas to play.
The X and Y chromosomes, known as the sex hormones you get from your parents, determine if you're a male or female.
So you guys were talking about toxic masculinity earlier, and I just want to ask, should we separate maybe not that masculinity is toxic, right, but instead that it is some aspects that could result in toxic behavior, right, like aggression is an example.
So my answer is, first off, we didn't talk about toxic masculinity, I just talked about masculinity, and I said that I like masculinity and I think it should be promoted. The answer to your question is just no. I think it's okay for boys to be boys, and I think if you're talking about young men, I'm just thinking right now of the Gillette commercial, wrestling, and now that's being called aggressive. I grew up with my brothers and my cousins wrestling. They would wrestle me when I was a small girl. That wasn't aggressive behavior, and I think that we need to stop making men being men and to stop using these words like aggressive to make it seem like there's something wrong with it. I'm actually really opposed to this made-up term, toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is a term that was made up by toxic feminists.
Identity politics is making society unstable because it's breaking down healthy family structures. Did you know that most children find their identity from their father? I learned this back when I studied psychology.
It looked like for children to be brainwashed. Well, here it is. It's a bunch of children sitting around on the carpet listening to a cross-dressing man reading a book about transgenderism. This isn't really the most important point. The most important point is simply that the school district and these two men and everyone else involved are guilty of abusing these children. They are all agents of ideology. They are not educators. They are not fit to educate. But let's also examine what they told these kids.
I have a girl brain, but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. When I was very little, and my mom would say, "You're such a good boy," I would say, "No, Mama, good girl." At first, my family was confused. They'd always thought of me as a boy. As I got a little older, I hardly ever played with trucks or tools or superheroes, only princesses and mermaid costumes. My brothers told me this was girl stuff. I kept right on playing.
A child at 2 or 3 years old, or however old Jazz was, saying, "I'm a girl." Well, that means nothing at all because a 3-year-old child has no idea what a girl is.
I am Helena. I'm 23 years old. When I was about 15, I started using Tumblr. I had an eating disorder since I was pretty young. There's a lot of messages that said, if you feel bad about your body, that means you're trans. I was just going through this period of like, I don't like how I'm treated as a cis person. I don't want to be cis because cis means you're uncool and you're privileged and you're an oppressor and you're bad, and I don't want to be that. In that way, I was really incentivized to try to figure out a way to make my voice heard in these communities. And obviously I can't change my race. I can't really change my sexuality. So the only thing left was to start playing around with the gender stuff. So I decided to call myself a demi-girl, which is one of the 40 million genders. And that basically means that I'm mostly a girl, but I'm a little bit not a girl, which is just like, what does that even mean? And then after that, I went to demi-boy. And then after that, I went to gender fluid. And after that, I eventually went to trans boy. But all this took like 2 or 3 years of just going through this repetitive cycle of changing this identity and changing it again. And it was just never enough. There was a lot of hopelessness for a long time, a lot of regret. The feeling of regret was intense.
Ruby began identifying as male at 13 years old. Now 21, she'd been planning to have surgery to remove her breasts. But in May, she made the decision to come off testosterone and detransition to identify as female, her sex at birth. She doesn't want to be identified, so we changed her name.
I figured it would be better for me to try to deal with my gender dysphoria in a different way, rather than permanently changing my body.
How much support did you feel was out there for you when you came to this conclusion?
I didn't feel like there was any support out there, other than like a few friends online.
Ruby now feels her eating disorder was more of a factor than she first realised in her gender dysphoria.
None of the therapists that I spoke to brought that up. They didn't think that it was linked.
You?
I think so, yeah. Because they're both kind of based in how I feel about my body, so I've seen similarities between the two.
Charlie Evans is forming a charity to support people in Ruby's position. After going public with her detransition story, she discovered an online community of 5,000 in a similar position, 30 people alone in her area of Newcastle.
I was approached by a young woman with a beard, and she hugged me and said, I'm a detransitioned woman as well, I've just stopped taking testosterone. And after that I felt like I had to do something. I'm hearing from hundreds of people.
At this point in a transition, with all of the pressure and all the things going on, certainly this is the key time in a transgender's life, and certainly is exciting. But I worry about the time when the lights go off and the shows go off, and all of a sudden, nobody's around.
You're there with your private, as we say, you're there with your private.
Enjoyed it.
Well, what went wrong?
Well, after about 8 years, and I started studying psychology because I wanted to become a counselor and help people, I started to realize that there's a lot of other things that hadn't been talked about regarding transgenders, and I learned that many transgenders suffer from what we call comorbid disorders. They're secondary disorders that are not diagnosed prior to surgery, such as separation anxiety, dissociative disorders, bipolar disorders.
Well, consent has to be documented, but it also has to be informed. And informed means you have to understand what you're consenting to. You needed to be walked through in great detail all of the issues that were relevant to you on the psychological and medical front, all the options that were available to you, and the pros and cons of all those options. I can't see in any possible way that could have been done with any degree of thoroughness in something under 6 months of weekly therapy. And I would say that's an absolute minimum to walk anyone through something as complicated as what you laid out.
The problem with me starting it so young was not only that I couldn't consent, I couldn't really fathom the full picture of things. You know, I'll never be able to breastfeed. I'll never have that erogenous sensation in my chest back. I do hate to speak about it, but I'm experiencing sexual dysfunction at the age of 18. That's something that women usually go through when they're in their 40s, 50s.
How was I supposed to know?
Psalm 139, verse 13. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them.
Receiving Paradox, the Wolf.
I am your blue fox host, Pharaoh.
I'm your co-host in training, Shroud the Leopard.
I'm your guest, Minnock the Raccoon.
On all levels except physical, I am a wolf.
So Avery and I are both birds. I am a cardinal and Avery is a blue jay. We like AM air pronouns in particular because they feel even further removed from gender than they, them, theirs. And being birds, while we do have our own gender expression, we don't inherently have a gender at all.
I have a mommy and daddy, a adopted mommy and daddy, who are totally comfortable with me being a little girl, and their children and their grandchildren are totally supportive. In fact, her youngest granddaughter, when I was 8, a year ago I was 8, and she was 7, and she said to me, I want you to be the little sister, so I'll be 9. I said, well, I don't mind going to 6, so I've been 6 ever since. But we have a great time, and we color, we do kid stuff. It's all play therapy, no medication, no suicide thoughts, and I just get to play.
I work out regularly at the Santee YMCA. Just 2 weeks ago, after finishing my shift at my job, I went to the gym to swim laps. As I was showering after my workout, I saw a naked male in the women's locker room. I immediately went back into the shower, terrified, and hid behind their flimsy excuse for a curtain until he was gone. I ran into a bathroom stall to change as quickly as I could, organizing my thoughts to share with the people at the front desk. As I did so, I could only think of my 5-year-old sister, who I bring to this gym during the summer to enjoy their water slides. This is the YMCA, where hundreds of children spend their summer afternoons in childcare camps. This is the YMCA where my little sister took gymnastics lessons. The locker room was supposed to be her safe haven to gossip with her friends and shower and change. When I asked the YMCA management what their policy was regarding transgenders, they confirmed that the man that I saw was indeed allowed to shower wherever he pleased. As long as you are not a red flag on Megan's Law, the California Sex Offender Registry, a grown male can shower alongside a teenage girl at your YMCA location here in Santee.
In an effort by the city and the YMCA to apply the neocultural gender rules at Mountain View Pool, dressing shower room facilities, women and children are being put at risk. My experience while showering after my swim was hearing a man's voice in the women's dressing area and seeing a man in a women's swimsuit watching little girls pull down their bathing suits in order to use the toilets in the dressing room. I reacted by telling him to leave, and the consequence is that I have been banned from the pool.
It's okay for a man to go into the women's section, show his penis around the other women, young little girls underage. Your mom, we both condone that. Is that what you're saying? Like I asked. It's so he can stay there. He can stay there? Okay, no, I'm not one. Actually, I'm a woman who knows how to stand up and speak up for my right. As a woman, I have a right to feel comfortable without a man exposing himself, okay? No, you go somewhere else.
40 years, he sits on the school board of an elementary school in Buckeye, Arizona called Liberty Elementary. This man is claiming to be a woman. It's a bad picture, hold on. There we go. This man tells the little children at the school that he is a woman. He wears clothing, he wears lipstick, and he uses the same restroom as your little girls. He also uses the women's locker room at Esporta Fitness in Goodyear, Arizona. He has been spotted yesterday in the women's locker room in Esporta Fitness in Goodyear, Arizona. He went on local television claiming victimhood because people like myself, parents who have the right to speak up against their elected officials, are harassing and bullying him. Paul Bixler cannot be voted off the school board. He must either willingly step down or be recalled. The recall is being started. I am at the gym in Arizona. He's undressing in the locker room. Top off, bra off. And Paul Bixler was in the women's locker room. And he looked at me, and he looked at my breasts, and I have called the police. Until recently, he's used the men's locker room. So he agrees himself that he's a man. I have told the police that I was in the locker room. A man was in there. I was getting undressed. He looked at me. He is a man in the women's locker room. And the response is that this is a touchy, sensitive issue in society. Yep, there he goes, women's locker room. There's the man going in the women's locker room. Hope there's no one undressing in there.
They could imagine what we're going through. Were they fighting for this? Were they fighting for this? It's kind of crazy and totally inconceivable, but it's actually happening.
In 1 Corinthians 16, verse 13, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. Who you vote for in elections, look at the laws these sick people put in place.
And then there's Paul Val. He's 40 from Davenport. He's married. He works at Disney World at Cosmic Rays Restaurant. In fact, he just recently moved to Polk County from Indiana, and he moved here specifically to work at Disney World. Well, you know, back in the day, they arrested Willie Sutton for robbing banks. He was a notorious bank robber. And they asked Willie Sutton, hey, Willie, why do you rob banks? And he said, well, that's where the money is. Well, why do people like Paul Val work at Disney? Because that's where the children are. And they want to be around children. He had 540 counts of child pornography from newborns to 8 years of age. He also had videos. And he was a sadomasochist. There was photographs where they had tied up babies.
We are only a tiny country of 59 million, compared to over 300 million in America, for example.
Biological male has just become the first transgender person to win a world title in cycling.
First transgender weightlifter winning her maiden international event as a woman.
A biological male winning a gold medal in a women's event now seems a matter of when, not if.
Game that is sweeping the nation, Find the Man. We're going to give you 2 pictures, and we're going to ask you to identify which one of these people is a biological man. Do you think you can do that?
I hope so.
Out of these 2 athletes, this one or this one, which is the biological man?
I think I'm going to have to go with this one.
That is correct. That is a biological man. How did you guess?
Because it looks like a guy.
He's built like a linebacker.
I mean, he's huge. He's got large muscles, a square jaw.
You are correct. That is Mountie. He is from Australia. He is a rugby player, and he is, I believe, almost 6'5". He is enormous. Right or left? Which one is a man?
Yeah, that would be the right.
And what makes you say that?
I mean, look at the size of the shoulders and the weight and all of that.
Body mass is overall like completely different. There's no way.
Totally different. I mean, he's clearly a man with his body, his muscles.
Still looks like a guy.
Still looks like a guy. I'm noticing a pattern here.
Absolutely mind-blowing that this was allowed at the Olympics.
2 competitive swimmers, right and left. Which one is a man?
Still looks like a guy. I'm a really tall girl, and I'm still nowhere close to that, so. I have personal experience swimming against Thomas, about 1.5 feet taller than me. We jump in the pool and it's already, like a body length ahead, and I definitely know that one is the male.
As somebody who's here who clearly was able to tell a biological man from a biological woman, what is the difference?
As a woman, I think it's the most anti-woman thing that could even possibly be done to say that a man is a woman. They're clearly different.
It's like we're trying to defy science, and that is a bit crazy. It's common sense. It's not anything that's meant to be extremely hurtful. It's just, using our brains and making a decision, and that's exactly what's happening, and it's blatantly obvious.
It violated the platform's hacked materials policy. In reality, the Twitter executives were hostile towards conservatives and biased towards anyone who opposed their points of view. For example, Mr. Roth, did you write this tweet?
I regret the language that I used in some of my former tweets, but yes, I did post that.
And I'll read the tweet so it's in the record. Yes, that person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House.
Baker, Miss Gaddy, Mr. Roth, and Miss Navaroli, you can consider your speech canceled during my time because you canceled mine. It's amazing to me, Mr. Roth, as the head and trust of safety at Twitter, your ability, or should I say inability, to remove child. Now here's something that disgusts me about you. In your doctoral dissertation entitled Gay Data, you argued that minors should have access to Grindr, an adult male gay hookup app. Minors? Really? Elon Musk took over Twitter and he banned 44,000 accounts that were promoting child. You permanently banned my Twitter account, but you allowed child all over Twitter. Twitter had become a platform, you said, connecting queer young adults. You also wrote on Twitter in 2010, can high school students ever meaningfully consent to sex with their teachers? In 2021, while you were the director of trust and safety on Twitter, an underage boy and his mother announced a lawsuit against Twitter because Twitter was benefiting from and refused to remove a lewd video featuring this boy and another minor. That is repulsive.
The historical moments of time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world. Rebalancing investment, harnessing science and technology, and advancing the transition to net zero emissions, all elements of the Great Reset, are fundamental to building the future we need.
And that last one was the clown Guterres, who was at the Climate Ambition Summit, telling us the world is going to cook by 3.5 degrees or something by the end of the century. Yeah, right. This Great Reset is as serious and as dangerous a threat to our prosperity, to your prosperity and your freedom, as we have faced in decades. With these powerful bodies, including the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and even Prince Charles boasting that within a few short years, yes, their words, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Remember, this is not me saying this is them. They are even running ads for the Great Reset. A handful of countries will dominate. I wonder which ones they might be.
All right, everyone. Welcome to our strategy session. We are the heroes that have been tasked with saving the world from the division and hate that have been plaguing it. But how are we going to do it?
Well, I think with the problem of racism, we can solve it by teaching people that they're inherently bad based on the color of their skin. and also segregating people based on their skin color.
Ooh, I like that.
Like how now the NFL will be playing a black national anthem and a white national anthem before games. It's a good first step in creating more division.
Yes, that's a great idea. So good. I'm not sure that's gonna work.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't think what you're proposing is gonna help racism because it is racism. You know, like what you're proposing is to judge a person based on their skin color, not the content of their character.
Yeah?
Well, that's the opposite of what Martin Luther King preached, which was to judge a person based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Oh, what? So you think just because you're a man, you can be educated?
Yeah.
Leave it to a white guy to bring up Martin Luther King. He's not white. I identify him as Korean. And you know Koreans know nothing about Martin Luther King. Look, what I'm doing isn't racism. I just don't think you're following me here. So let me explain. What I'm saying is that certain racial groups are superior and other certain racial groups are inferior. Yeah, that's racism. You just said the definition of racism. Look, I've got it printed right here. I identify as illiterate, and it is hateful to try to get our community to read things. Literacy is racist. Quit being so hateful, man. I hate you because you're a man. See? That's the kind of love we need more of. Okay, moving on. What's your idea for helping the world? I am transgender and non-binary. Amazing. Thank you for your contribution. So you're transgender and non-binary? Mm-hmm. That's great, but did you know those are two opposite things? So you can't be both at the same time. How dare you? Well, no, I mean, you're obviously a great person, but what if we could stretch our minds into objective reality for just a second? Transgender means you identify as the opposite gender you were born as. And it means you're possibly willing to go through surgeries and hormone treatments because you identify as that gender so much. Yeah? And being non-binary means you don't identify as any gender. And you're saying you're both of these at the same time? Yeah? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Whoa! You're just attacking her because she's black. She's not black. Ask her. Are you black? I do identify as black. You'll never amount to anything because of your skin color. I don't think you're black. Look, I realize your cisgender privilege clouds your reality, but if you would just stop overthinking things, you realize your objective reality should be based on my imagination. Does that make more sense now?
Romans 12 verse 21 says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." If good men do not stand up for good morals and values in society, then we have a big problem. If you don't stand up against strange men appearing in... Edmund Burke said, "All that is required for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing."